Aspen magazine was a multimedia publication published in New York from 1965 till 1971. The editor and publisher was Phyllis Johnson, a previously commercial editor who was publishing a weekly women's magazine. Phyllis Johnson went in 1965 to the International Design Conference in Aspen, and she was very inspired by the discussions taking place in the conference. The conference was bringing together creative practitioners with businesses, and together those parties were thinking of how to make the living experience better. So Phyllis Johnson went there, and when she came out of the conference, had a great idea for a magazine, which was Aspen magazine. The magazine is unique because it broke ground in terms of editorial concept, also design concept. It challenged very much the reader at the same time, because they received it by subscription. They didn't know exactly what was going to be in the magazine, so every time a surprise came through the post. Of course, the magazine had to have the reader actively involved in it. It wasn't the conventional reading experience. You had to unfold items, you had to take your cassette player and put a cassette in, or even more complicated things like setting up an 8mm film projector. During the life of the magazine, there were numerous artists, theorists, musicians that took part in it as contributors. Andy Warhol edited issue 3 together with David Dalton, and that's actually what kick-started the artistic intervention in the magazine. Other people who came later were Brian O'Doherty, who edited issue 5 and 6, and a bit later on Dan Graham. So we already see 3 very different artists standing in different areas of work, Andy Warhol in pop art, and then the other 2 mainly in what we could broadly call conceptual art and minimalism, also using very different media. Dan Graham used photography, installation, published work, and so on. So there was a great variety of people, musicians from Bill Evans to John Cage and Steve Reich were contributing. Every magazine was a surprise. So you would open the box and sometimes find pieces that you could read, but many other times the artist had conceived unique works, items, objects for the box. For instance, John Lennon's diary is a small booklet that you go through and read day by day. In issue 5 and 6, Brian O'Doherty's editorial, you find a maze by Tony Smith that you have to construct yourself by cutting and folding pieces of paper. You also find a Super 8 film that you can watch, and that includes 4 films by artists. So you go deeper into the editorial by unfolding. Each item leads you to something else. In the Warhol issue, you have, again, a piece by Warhol, which is the 10-trip ticket book. Of course, direct references to LSD and the party culture of the time. And of course, some of these people were the audiences as well of Aspen magazine. Aspen magazine influenced numerous publications that followed, both in terms of design, so the idea of a magazine in a format that is different from the conventional opening page format, but also in terms of the editorial concept. So the fact that various contributors every time could do a piece on the magazine. The one that followed immediately after Aspen, and it's an artist publication, was SMS. And this came out in 1968. And I would say that SMS was the most important counterpart for Aspen. But in the exhibition as well, we followed chronologically various publications that have come out since, and they are all artist publications, and they are magazines in a box. So we do see that, of course, Aspen being the first one must have influenced the first, at least the first decade of magazines like that. A discovery that amazed me, I had no idea about it when I was researching Aspen magazine, was the fact that the seminal essay, Death of the Author by philosopher Roland Barthes, was actually commissioned by Brian O'Doherty for Aspen 5 and 6. So Brian O'Doherty contacted Roland Barthes and he decided to contribute the death of the author, which of course was in its making at the time. The first translation of the title was The Destruction of the Author, so quite a different thing. But considering that this essay is in the reading lists of generations of people who have studied arts all over the world, I thought that was my most amazing discovery. People should come to see this exhibition because Aspen magazine was a unique publication that brought together art, theory, music, and design in a unique format, fueled by editorial freedom, something which we cannot find today in publications. Apart from that, of course, it's the first time that the magazine is shown in its entirety with a lot of original research, and including its film pieces and the audio pieces. So only for that, I think it's a must to see.